on, yeah. Good afternoon. How's everybody? All right. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. We are here to talk about town hall on facilities. I'm going to get us to our agenda slide. So we'll start. Like Father Michael said, there are still seats in the front. I know the good Catholics are in the back. Closer to the cookies.
This is an amazing turnout. This is bigger than anything I saw since I came here. This is amazing. And obviously good communications and email blasts and whatever. Before I say the opening prayer, I want to tell you a little story. I'm going to be passing this around. It's a little caricature of me. Okay, and I want you to pass it around, and there'll be a little story in it. It won't distract you for anything. Just when you read it, you won't have to read the front section. Just you can turn the pages and just look at it and pass it on. But this was carved at a time when I was in another parish, and there was an appeal for people to come out to see if we would participate in the bishop's appeal and something in the diocese and whatever. And this guy said, my wife and I just returned to Knoxville to enjoy our retirement years. We searched the area for a Catholic church with a priest like me. No, he didn't say that. Okay, even though All Saints was much further than our residence, we kept coming back to All Saints. And then he said, I carved this because in your appeal, Moses raised his arms to prevail against Amalek, who was in battle, was the basis of your talk on the upcoming capital campaign. You were confident that we would reach our goal if we would keep our hands raised. This was the inspiration for this carving that would show you keeping your arms raised. I hope this memento will help you in the challenge ahead. So I'd just like to pass it around because he just picked me as he saw me and did that. I think it's lovely. But I just want you to know I could care less, and listen to me, I could care less whether we build something or not. It's none of my business. I'm interested in what God wants. Okay? But learning what God wants, we have to take each other's input. And having done that, because we will be presenting ways, and I'm very, very grateful to the assessment team. You worked hard on it before, and it just wasn't enough. And you went back again, and you did it again, and that's why we're back again. Because that's the way we sort out, hey, what direction should we go in as St. Francis of Assisi Parish? And we put all the information in, give it as much as we can, and then you will come back to us, and then when it's all over, we're going to give you the opportunity to tell you which direction we should go in. And it won't be based on just what you do, because you aren't the whole parish, but you are a great indication of the foundation on which we begin. So you can have it there, and then I'll say my prayer, and you can look at these little pictures. This was the first time he did anything like that, so there you go. So, let us pray. Oh God, our Father, you sent me here to be shepherd with these people, not to just lead them where I wanted, but to be with them wherever we would go, and it's been an extraordinary journey. You know the reason we're gathered, because we do have needs, and we hope that we will be able to present them. We also have limitations, and we help you to ask you to help us live within those but not to be confined by them, because it was you who multiplied loaves and fishes and asked us to believe. So keep our spirits calm and open and filled with your Spirit. We ask this through the intercession of our Blessed Mother Mary, who was open to whatever the Spirit wanted, because when she began, she had no idea that a baby was going to be in her life. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Okay, so let me tell you what we're going to do today. You can see on the screen we have a little bit of a presentation that we're going to do, but the biggest part of today is going to belong to you, because we're going to set aside most of the afternoon for open discussions. So we're going to take a few minutes right here at the beginning. I'm going to walk you through a few slides that we've prepared to give you a little idea about what we've done in the assessment team and give you some indication of what we see as options for our path forward. And then we're going to spend most of the time in dialogue with each other. And we think it's going to take, by 6 o'clock we should be out of here. So, we'll spend as much time as we need to in the open dialogue phase today. We have some handouts we're going to give you after the presentation is done. We do have a preference card that you'll get at the end here, so that you can express not only in the discussion we're going to have, but you'll actually have something you can turn into us, so that we'll be able to log what the parish as a whole thinks about these options. Okay? So let's jump in. So before we start, I want to make sure that we have our terms sort of together, because we're going to be using some of these terms this afternoon, and I want to make sure that we're understanding what we mean. And I know that's a lot of words on that slide, but just bear with me. So you're going to hear us talk about utilization this afternoon. When we say that word, what we mean is the meeting spaces, the times of the day and the days of the week when our meeting spaces are being used as a fraction of the whole time of the week when they could be used. Okay? Capacity talks about the total amount of space that exists that we have currently where we could host meetings. Flexibility doesn't mean what we can do here. It means how willing are we to shift the times of day and the days of the week when we meet. Okay? So those three terms are really important because they go directly to how we assess our ability to host meetings and events both now and in the future. Then the last thing on that slide is something for us to remember, and that is that the church is a worship space. It's been consecrated as a worship space, and so that constrains what we can do in there, especially what we can do in the sanctuary, where the altar and the ambo and the tabernacle are. Okay? So, here's what we've done so far. The assessment team, as Father Michael said, has been at this for a while. We've collected some data. We've interviewed the ministry heads. We've talked to them about what they think they need in terms of spaces to meet, days of the week, how frequently they meet. We also collected data about area growth. How much is Fairfield Glade growing? What about the area around Fairfield Glade is growing? All of that data has helped the team to think about what our needs are right now today and also to try and make some predictions about what our needs might be in the future. So let's talk a little bit about space. When we interviewed the ministry heads, we asked them a lot of questions about what kind of meetings do you hold? How often do you hold them? How big are the meetings? Do you serve food? What kind of food do you serve? Where do you get the food from? All those kinds of questions go into trying to figure out what sort of meetings we have and what sort of space we need to have those meetings. Not just the meetings we're having now, but the meetings we might have in the future. We took that information and created what I sort of call a map, a utilization map, that allows us to look at the spaces we have now, like the one that we're sitting in right now, and better understand how we use that space for meetings and events, both right now and then to help us understand how much growth in frequency and size of meetings we can tolerate, basically, until we have to rethink how we host meetings and events because we couldn't accommodate them in our space as it's currently configured. So that's what the map was supposed to do for us. It's a visualization. I'm kind of a visual guy, so I convinced the team we needed to draw a map. So Reenie's going to come up because she spearheaded that piece of the team that actually drew this map for us. So she's going to show you a really awesome map and talk to you a little bit about how to interpret this map so that you get an idea about what we discovered about how our space is getting used.
Thank you, Deacon. Well, before I even show you the slide, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what you're going to see. Okay? It is a chart, and it shows scheduling for the Resource Center and here in Sheehan Hall, or what we call the Parish Hall, over a 4-week period. And what you're going to see are colored blocks, and the colored blocks will represent something occurred, a meeting, a retreat, a program of some type. It was scheduled and occurred during that day and time. Then you also see blocks without color. And conversely, those are spaces where the rooms were available. Okay? And we view our 2 main meeting rooms being the Resource Center and Sheehan Hall here.
Ooh, ah.
Ooh, ah. Okay, so the top is self-explanatory, the title. And then you see across the top is the Resource Center. That's a schedule for each of the 4 weeks for the Resource Center, going horizontally across the top. And the Parish Hall, can you see, Father? I feel like I
can see.
Okay. And the Parish Hall goes across the bottom. And then, I don't know if you have a red light, Deacon, but the left-hand column represents morning, both in the Resource Center and the Parish Hall. That's the morning. So you can look at mornings and what they look like as far as meeting and usage of those spaces. The center column represents the afternoon from 12 to 4. And the right-hand column represents evenings. And we identified that 5 to 9. Now what I want you to look at is the color and the non-color. So as you can see, evenings are not really utilized. Okay? And particular days that are less popular are Friday and Monday. So if you look down Friday, of course it's empty. Friday in the afternoon, pretty much empty. And Friday in the mornings, again, are empty. St. Vincent de Paul's the first one that's really started using it, I think, every other week consistently. Mondays are similar, very little on Mondays. Mainly it's Monday afternoon, but it's set up for Tuesday morning. So we're not using those spaces for our meetings or any of our events typically. Times of day.
And keep in mind too, I just jump in here. This is an example week. It's not a particular week of the month. It's something that Rini and her team looked across a whole bunch of data that represents actual scheduled use of our spaces and synthesized this representation so we could look at just one slide instead of like 26 slides. Okay.
Well, yes, what we found was this was pretty typical.
Yeah.
This was actually August and September, but it was a pattern that was consistent throughout the year. And I think if any of you have been around in the afternoons, you know you walk through the hall and Sheen Hall's empty. Okay. Times. The most popular time really is like Tuesday, the mornings, number one. The mornings are the popular time, particularly Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So, having said all that, now that we know our pattern of our utilization, well, I want to say one other thing. We have a third space that we often think of as a meeting space, and that's the office conference room. Okay? So we just automatically go to it as a third space. I think it would be very appropriate to use that for the staff, so they have a working area, or if parishioners come in, they have a place to sit down and fill out paper, and to use it as an overflow need, versus an automatic third choice for a meeting space. You know, so we need to ask ourselves, can we consider being a little more flexible when looking at meeting times and use those unused times, if you will? Does that make sense? And the other thing to think about is with our programs expanding, using this flexible scheduling is going to be more crucial than it ever has been. I think that's it. That was my claim to fame.
Okay, so what's the bottom line here? After we did all that noodling over spaces and looked at a whole bunch of those maps beyond the one that we just showed you, so what did we end up discovering? Well, Rini kind of talked about it already. We have to increase our flexibility in the way we schedule our meetings if we're going to maximize the use of the space that we have right now. We're going to need to configure our spaces differently because we're doing more and more meetings that are based around small group discussions, and we don't have spaces to break out small groups into. We need a space on occasion with larger capacity so that we can host different kinds of events, like concerts, like special speakers like Alan Hunt that we had just recently. Or if we wanted to do a big fish fry or something like that, we don't really have spaces to handle things like that. So we have some challenges, let's say, with the way our current facilities are configured. Doesn't mean that we can't work around those challenges, but we have to recognize them. And one of the other things that we know is that the surrounding area is growing, not very fast, but it is. But we also have what Mike likes to call the missing parishioners. We have people who are on our rolls but don't attend our activities. They might come to Mass occasionally, but they don't come to our events. They don't come to our sessions that we schedule. If we got lucky and Father actually drugged them in, which he's very good at doing, we'd have a challenge to accommodate an increase of enthusiastic Catholics. So we know that we've got some challenges, and we know we have some opportunities to work around those challenges. We're trying to think about how do we address that as we go forward. But the real issue isn't really about headcount growth and things like that. We want to really put our opportunity for our needs and who we are as a parish in a different kind of context. And the context that we want to use is the dynamic of who we are becoming as a parish. And so this is where I want to turn over and let Father Michael come and talk to us a little bit about it, because it's the vision of who we want to be at St. Francis that is driving the way we look at our need for facilities, not really about how fast is the glade growing and what does our configuration look like and how many houses are getting built and sold and things like that. That's not really what this is about. This is about who we are becoming, and is our configuration of facilities helping us achieve who we want to be. So Father, do you want to come and talk to us a little bit about the way you see us evolving?
Let me remind you, I'm on my 8th year here, and it's been amazing. And what I've experienced here is very precious, and I love it. How long I'm going to be here? Well, I think that's up to God. And I don't mean I am planning to leave. I could, like many who have gone before, die in the morning or get sick in the morning. And then what we do. But I'd like to remind you that when I came, I used to be able to play golf 3 times a week. It was wonderful, truly, because we were a very active community in very specific ways. I remember being told before I came, you will love Fairfield Glade. Those people there, they will take care of this and take care of that and whatever, and especially the CCW and the Knights of Columbus. That's what I was told. Nobody told me anything about Fairfield Glade or where it was, etc. And that's what I mean. I had lots of time. It was wonderful. I could go in the evening, I could go in the morning. It wasn't like that map that you put up there. And it was good, it was wonderful. And I had no agenda when I came, except to be a priest for you and with you, and wherever that would take me. And before I came, you were doing something very, very interesting, which I think is bearing fruit before I even got here. I had nothing to do with it. And it was you as a people coming together saying, what kind of parish do we want to be? And some of you were sent away to a program called Amazing Parish. You remember it? And it was to identify very strongly, not just assume, because we come from all over, and we come as Catholics, and we make a decision to come here and to come to Mass, but the reason for our existence, and that's what you began to search, is to preach the gospel. That's why we're here. We don't think of that as the goal of retired people. We've done that. And yet, at the same time, you configured the way we were organized so that somehow or another everybody would come to get to know what the other was doing, instead of each group doing fantastic work. It was, how does it fit into this expression of who we are? A couple of things happened just recently that just blew me away. And maybe it's indicative of what's happening. But one was when the bishop came to bless the icon. He was amazed. And I'm sure before my time, people were amazed. But in this hall here, there was such a buzz of people who belonged to each other, who were delighted to be here to celebrate our bishop. And it was really very beautiful. The other thing that happened that blew me away was what happened with Alan Huncock. What happened on that day, to me, was an extraordinary indication of something that is happening among us. And we didn't know who he was, but somehow or another it was seen as a way in which we could become encouraged to learn more about who we are as a faith community. And you came. And I'm sort of glad that the other 100 who signed up to come didn't come. Not because we didn't want them, but because we were packed out. And what was done by those who arranged it and saw to it that the movement of the schedule that would happen would in fact be an experience. It was bigger than coming to Sunday Mass, etc. It was different. And people went away saying, we should do more of this. Just an indication of one of those things. And the other thing was this Sunday. I don't know whether you were here at 10 o'clock Mass on Sunday. But there was a lot going on. Seemingly small enough, but those who were doing it were wanting it. And that was that outreach to St. Alphonsus, who came to us and said, can you help? But they plugged into something that was very dear to you and identifies who we are as a people, namely our dead. To remember them, to be connected to them. And after each Mass on that weekend, people poured into the parish hall here. That was one thing. The second thing was, it was scheduled a long time ago with the Bethlehem folks. And people poured in here. And at the 10 o'clock Mass, something very, very, very important was going on. And it was the introduction of a group of people who gathered together to study, to learn more about who we are as a people in the 33 days. And after it was over, they had a little event planned to sit down and eat and to celebrate being with each other while everybody else was in the same space. And in some ways, it was sad in some ways to see, well, they wanted to be in their own space and celebrate with each other because they had gone through 8 weeks of studying, and here they are surrounded by everybody else who doesn't know anything about it. And some people who came to Mass sat down and said, oh, there's some nice food. Good. And that was just on this weekend. And all I want to say is, that's different, absolutely different to when I came here. And I'm not saying there's anything to do, it's just that something is happening in our parish. And when I talk about growth, I am talking, of course, of how many people are coming into the glade and how many houses are being built. And please, put that information in. But what we're trying to do is discern, where is God leading this community? And I can tell you for sure, because I'm out in the community, people are saying, what's going on at St. Francis of Assisi? On your map, at least in the mornings, this parking lot is full. Okay? But it wasn't. It wasn't full. It was on special occasions, but this is every day. And not only every day, we have enough space for this daily Mass. But the numbers have jumped from about 20 people coming to daily Mass from the same community to roughly 50 to 70 people coming to daily Mass. Something is happening. And that's what I think we need to look at also that where is God's Spirit leading us? And the meaning, the purpose for our existence as a parish at all, and I'm going to use a word that we used 2 years ago that Deacon Duhamel used the other day. He talked, does anybody know about the kerygma? What I was sad was nobody put up the hand, even though we spent a whole year talking about it. But it's all right. Things go over our heads and whatever. And it was, we exist, the purpose for our existence, even in our retirement, is to proclaim the kerygma, that Jesus came, that He did something, the most profound thing that ever happened in the existence of human creation. And that He calls us to go and tell the good news. That's our reason for existence. And that's why when Pope Francis, most recently, when he called the synod, and there was all kinds of uproar about it, and yet at the same time people moved on, and now we have Pope Leo, and he has called on the same dynamic to continue. And what it is communion, participation, and mission. But communion is not going to communion at Mass. That's an expression of it, but it's meant to drive us to be in communion with each other. I know sometimes in many churches, lots of people coming to communion and can't stand each other. And that's not the call. The call is to be one. To have a mind in us, which was also in Christ Jesus. And that when He gathered that group of people, setting up a church, a community of faithful who would be powered by the Holy Spirit and driven to do what Jesus did. And there was no communion among them either, except around Jesus, which was the very thing to be He wanted. And He called them friends. But as friends, they would go their own separate ways until the Holy Spirit came. And they became one. And Jesus prayed for that communion. I pray that they will be one. And I think that that is happening at our parish. That there is a sense that we belong. And we are educating ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we're having a lot of participation involved. The participation that is meant to be involved is the participation in the life of the Trinity. That we respect our differences, our individuality. But the individuality and the difference is not there for me to just be me. Just as the difference in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit isn't, hey, look at me. But rather that they would have such mutual relationship with each other that there's only one God. And that's the participation that we're encouraging more and more, where people are in fact showing up, and it is numbers. But the other part is that it's the life that was existent in God before we came. And then the last one is mission, is that we keep in mind the reason we're having bingo or any other gathering for that matter, for Bible study or whatever, is that so we will become equipped to fulfill the mission that Jesus gave us, that doesn't drop when we become retired. He said, I need you to go out and baptize in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy, and make disciples. Bring people in, so that when we talk about growth, we can look at the population that is here in the glade and decide whether somehow or another we have enough space to do to gather people in. And my challenge is, and I believe the challenge of the church is, and of Jesus is, no, I need you to draw in people, to find out what's going on in here that makes us be seen and become visible. As people asked when they saw Jesus, they said, "Who is he?" And then it has taken us a lifetime of trying to discover who he is. So as you go forward with just those three things, to keep it in mind, because I am interested in the growth of the Glade, and how many people are coming, and what spaces we have, and whatever. But how we go forward, to me, belongs to how is God drawing us? What is he asking? Because we are different, and we have become different over the 8 years that I've been here. I'm witnessing it. I'm not creating it. I'm going with it, with you, and where we go, I don't know. So you can tell us.
Okay. And so, with that sort of context, I want to show you where we went as an assessment team. So, because we are growing dynamically, as Father said, it is kind of coming from the inside of who we are. I've even noticed it in just the short time I've been here with you guys that we are clearly different than we were even when I got here. We need some more flexibility. So what the team did was we took all that information that we collected. We took what we saw happening in the parish and laid out what we think are 3 pretty reasonable paths forward that we can consider for what we need to do with our facilities to help us become the parish we think God is calling us to be. And so that's what I want to talk you through now.
Can I do one thing that I meant to say
Absolutely.
before I
You can
go?
always
That's
do.
always me. And it is this. You know that I got a phone call from the bishop the other day. Okay. When I came here first, there were no other priests, there were no other deacons. We now have Father John, we have Deacon Gary, we have Deacon Paul, and now the bishop is saying, I want another person coming here. And I can assure you, he's not sending this new man, Daniel. He's not sending him so that somehow or another he'll just see what's happening. He wants him involved because he has already said there is something going on in here, and he wants him to experience it. The second thing I wanted to tell you was, there was a condition, and that was if I would take it. And I can honestly tell you that in being asked that, that wasn't easy for me. But the question isn't what I want. The question is, what is God asking me to do? And I am very happy to, in a sense, let go Michael Woods. Remembering him, not dismissing my joy in being by myself or seeing it the way that I see it, but rather being asked to go into something to indicate that it's not about me. It's about where the Spirit is leading. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, so let's look at these 3 pathways, and we tried to make the font, hopefully, so those of you in the back cannot read it. So, you able to make it? Okay, all right. So, I'm going to talk you through these 3 paths. We're almost done with the presentation, so you guys will be ready to talk here right in a minute. So, the first path, we start on the left, is what we've seen based on all the things we looked at was, okay, well, so let's get better at using what we've got. So that's essentially what path number 1 is. We're going to improve the utilization of our existing facilities. That's going to require that we get more flexible about the way we schedule our ministry meetings. If you think back to the map that Rini showed you, that means we need to use the blank spaces. Okay? We're not going to commit to construction of any kind of building on the campus at this time. So that means that some of the larger events that we'd like to host, we're going to have to do that off-site. Okay? So that's path number 1. Path number 2 says, well, let's investigate. construction of a new Parish Life Center here on the campus. So that means we're going to have to form a committee that can oversee the development of preliminary architectural drawings and selection of contractors and things like that. There'll be approvals required, of course, from Fairfield Glade, from the county, from the diocese. There will be another town hall after we get partway down that track where we'll be able to look at drawings and ideas and concepts about what would that Parish Life Center look like, where would it be, all that kind of stuff. Then there would be the capital campaign that would have to be designed to collect whatever funds would be needed that are not already in hand. And then there'd be the construction of the facility, which we think probably would be about 3 years. Okay, so that's path number 2. Path number 3 is actually a composite of those two. We start out and say, all right, let's start out by trying to better use what we've got right now. So we essentially defer any decision about investigating a new Parish Life Center. We try and use what we have now better, which means flexible scheduling, shifting our meetings around, moving some big events off-site. At some point, we might decide, okay, now I want to investigate a new Parish Life Center, and at that point, that path would merge over here and become essentially path number 2. Okay? So those are the 3 options that we think make the most sense. In a minute, you're going to get a couple of handouts. One of those is going to have data on it about construction costs and building sizes and things like that. The other one's going to have expenses related to the rental of the center down here and what that costs us when we move events off-site. The other handout is going to look just like this. It's your preference card, so that you can tell us which one of those 3 options you like the best after we're done with the open discussion. Okay? And you'll have an opportunity to check a box. You don't have to turn it in today if you don't want to. If you want to go home and think about it, talk to people, look at the video, because Maggie is recording. Turn around and wave at Maggie. She's recording. Okay? And it'll be posted on the website. You can give some more thought to your decision. But we want these preference cards by Sunday, the 16th of November, so that we can log the preference of the parish. We're also going to be trying to collect feedback from the rest of the parish who is not here this afternoon, because we'd like to get other people's ideas as well. Okay? So, I pushed the wrong button. Your turn to talk now. All right? So we're going to pass out those handouts I talked about. I've got the microphone right here. If you will raise your hand, I will give you the mic, or I will throw it at you. Those of you that are in the back there. And we will start the open discussion. So I saw the hands in the back, so that's where I'm headed first.
Sworn in each, we'll take care of each. Larry, they should have some extras, and they'll come to you.
And I'm all familiar with a couple of events. What are the events that have occurred off-site in the last 3 years where we've actually had to go off-site? I think I can only remember a couple. So I'm questioning the need for off-site.
Typically the last couple of times that I can think of, we've had a gala off-site for the octave that's been over at the center. That's the one I can think of. That's we had an open house a couple of years ago, but you're right, those kinds of big things that we take off-site are fairly infrequent. Typically what we do is we cap the attendance at sites here to keep from having to go off-site. That's what the ticket sales are about. We just keep the events within the restriction of the size of Sheehan Hall so that we don't have to go off-site.
My question is, what are our facilities here? Like, is there a basement to this building? And those rooms are used?
Just one room.
And the old rectory?
Only a small conference room. So the facilities, the question about facilities, the room that we're in right now is the one that's used the most, of course. There's a conference room right in there that used to be known as the library, now known as the Resource Center. There is a small conference room in the parish office. That's it. What new rectory? Yeah, he has a rectory, but there's no meeting space over there.
Could you repeat the question, please, or put your to the mouth? Put the mic.
Yeah, this microphone's not working, so I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah.
So the question was exactly what are the meeting spaces that we have. So you're sitting in the most useful space we have, which is Sheehan Hall.
You folk have to pay.
Okay. The Resource Center is the one right there, right over there behind those doors. And it's small. There is a small conference room in the parish office that's probably holds about 10 folks, 10 or 12 folks. There is no meeting space in the rectory. There is no basement in this building. That's it. You can have meetings, I guess, in the church, which we've done in the past.
Okay. I would like you to know that I do not have any office space for me. The new deacon who will come will not have any office space for him. We will use the rectory, which isn't really the best place to meet. That's where I mostly meet people individually. I know that particularly in the environment of today, where there have been so many scandals in the church, it is not a good place for me to be meeting people, because I can be put down for this or lifted up for that or whatever. But I do. For those that don't know, the rectory was built for a pastor and 2 retired priests. I had prayed that they would continue working. So anyway, a new space is being taken, but it's not really a place for meetings. Okay, but I have been and will be very generous with it.
My question is, if you have an event where you have to sell tickets, how often do you have it where the ticket sales have stopped because you cannot accommodate any more people here? And if you were to sell more tickets, you would have to go to the bigger venue.
I think that happens almost all the time. I think the ticket sales cut off. That's what you're asking. Did the ticket sales cut off the?
That they cut off and that
Yeah.
people are disappointed because
Yeah.
they want you.
We hear that happens virtually all the time. Now, I don't have the stats right in front of me, but the team tells me that happens to almost every one of our large events.
We just had
Yeah.
bingo, and that was that situation where
We just provided bingo a month or so ago, and we had to cut off sales. We can only have 160 people in this room, and that's not a lot when you consider how many would like to have attended.
And a lot of the people that have been here a long time, like I have, 20 years and more, are not coming to events because they kind of, I don't know, I don't want to speak for their feelings, but I think they feel a little pushed out and not able to handle tight, noisy crowds. And I just think we need more space to accomplish the communion and the mission that we want to with all of our parishioners. And just one other comment, Sunday really was kind of a mess with 3 things trying to go on in here. It was almost embarrassing for the people that were putting on the event.
Front, up front.
Do you have an updated cost figure for the total construction cost if we were to go with the facility as outlined last meeting or across from the rectory?
No. No, because that's the job of this next committee if we decide to go that way, so we haven't done anything that way yet.
Last time, from my notes, it said it was estimated 3.2 to 4 million. Is that still in the ballpark, you think? No. Okay. Yeah. Let's say, if you rented it out or used it 100 times a year, that's about twice a year. You did it for 10 years. To recoup a 3.5 million construction cost, you'd have to charge $3,500 per each of those 100 events, each of those 10 years. And it may be worth it, it may not, but I mean, I think before I would know to vote on your card here to go 1, 2, or 3 path, I kind of have to know what that kind of general total cost figure is. Because if it's going to cost $3,500 to rent it out each time, might make different than if it's $500 or if it's at $4,500.
But remember, you got another town hall before any decision is made about the commitment of those dollars and the capital campaign. We're taking this one step at a time. And if the reason we're making a decision is because we're going to rent it out, then we're making the wrong decision. Or starting from the wrong decision.
I'll just what.
Father spoke early on about the number of people that would attend daily mass, and it was fairly low in number, and now it has increased. Father also talked about something is going on at the parish. Something exciting is going on. I have a concern because, and I have a comment to say at the risk of the gentleman sitting to my right. The excitement in what's going on in this parish has emanated a great deal from Father Michael.
Yes.
And I think everyone would say that. And when there is a time, and I hope it goes on for a long time, that Father Michael hangs in there, I wonder about the activity and the things that we're talking about, we're having a need for right now, and the excitement that Father Michael generates. I'll leave it at that.
Curious, looking at this card, what's the significance of putting your name down?
To get money from you.
We have other ways of doing that. No, we're trying to make sure that we get everybody's vote, that we know that we've gotten a preference from everyone, that we don't get multiple preferences from the same person, and that we get enough preferences expressed by a large enough percentage of the parish that we can go forward with a statistically valid decision. So that's why we've asked for names, so we can track them. But it's not necessary. If you feel really strongly that you don't want to give us your name, don't give us your name. It's okay.
This is like deja vu for me, having come from a parish who questioned the same things we're questioning How much will it be used? Is it worth the money? The school my children attended also was connected with the church, and then they built a huge hall. And the comments in the community, both Catholic and non-Catholic, was tremendous. You wonder if it's going to be used enough to offset the money, but it turned out to be being used a lot more than even they had planned for. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of stress, but it's amazing what things come up that, oh, we could put it in the hall. I mean, if you're going to, rent space at some time. And it was busy all the time, and it was great. And they do things for different other things like Kiwanis and stuff like that. It was great. It really was.
Deacon, we have some back here too.
Yeah. We got some up here too. I don't know what to do. I don't know if they do a few back there. Come back up front.
Father Michael, I want to congratulate you on your point of why we're here is because of Jesus. And that needs to be our focus. But I do need to correct you on one thing, and Bob McCone sort of got there. The number of daily Mass attendees. Now my wife and I came here 14 years ago when Father John Dowling and Monsignor Tony were here. How many of you were here that time? And then after that, we had Father Albert. But I was the head sacristan and server when Father John was here. And one of the things he was always concerned about was that the server would count the number of daily Mass attendees to be sure that the number of hosts matched. He didn't want a whole bunch of extra hosts at a tabernacle. And I remember counting them, and there were 70 to 90 daily Mass. It dropped down a little bit with Father Albert, 50 to 60. But anyway, one thing that most of you then don't realize is that there have been two plans previously to make additions in our parish here. One of them, the first one, was when the bishop was asking for money for his new cathedral. And there was a cost-sharing rebate kind of thing where parishes would get some money back for all they donated. And there was a design made at that time to expand the hall here, go out that way. Expand the hall, you could have 3 different meeting rooms with folding partitions and open them up when you had a big meeting. They also expanded that way, and the intent was to have it be 2 stories to add more classrooms and storage. But they found out when they got into the design process that this part of the building is built on solid rock, and to go 2 stories, it just wasn't going to work. So that never happened, but we had the money, and Father Albert came, and his decision was, let's renovate the church. Let's use part of that money that we already had and renovate the church. So the floors were done, the pews were done, sound system was replaced, altar, furniture, everything was redone there. And my point is, going back to Father Michael where he started, that needs to be our focus, is Jesus. That's why we're here. He's in there. The second renovation that we talked about years later was to expand this way. And the purpose in that was to move all of the office personnel together with their own meeting room, with a room for Father Michael, office, and have the front of the church facing Peavine Road. So that when people came in that are visitors, and I used to see them frequently, come to the front door of the church and it's locked. How do you know where to go? All the way around the back in that door? And walk away, unless there's somebody there. So we were going to put the front of the church facing Peavine with offices there so people knew where they were coming in. Part of that renovation also included going that way, adding classrooms, meeting rooms. And I guess what I'd like to offer is another option, perhaps path forward. Instead of doing a parish life center, separate building away from Jesus, who was right there, let's stay connected to Jesus. If you look at the information that was handed out, there are tens of thousands of dollars devoted to design of new construction things. We spent tens of thousands looking at that, tens of thousands looking at that. Those drawings still exist. Why should we throw all that away to build a separate building somewhere else, start all over again for the third time, when we could all be together in this building with offices, classrooms, expanding out that way, just not 2 stories that way, this way maybe. So my suggestion is, let's think about what we're doing before we focus on, well, the only option is a new building somewhere else.
My statement is in reference to, I was looking at the information sheet that you gave us, is talking about the current Sheehan Hall capacity. 160 seated, chairs only, 342, but standing, 480. In reality, your father's been talking about this, so we're in the 4th quarter. We look around, and the demographics of our community are a lot that we're in the 4th quarter. And looking at situations that might involve where we have to have a standing room only, you're going to find it's going to cut a lot of people off from being able to enjoy or feeling like they can come to these events, because standing for long periods of time is just not an option for many of us in our community anymore.
Hi, I'm one of the 3 custodians here at the parish. We keep parish, church, and all of this clean for all of the events. There have been times when we have had to change this room around 3 times in one day. I've been here at 6 o'clock in the morning, so was Ray and so was Mike, to make sure that those groups that are going to use this room have everything set up the way they want. Sometimes they give us diagrams, sometimes they don't. When we have to change it that many times, we're rushing people to make those changes, and that's not right. Every group has their own agenda. Every group should have time to get their message across to the people who take their time to come to the meetings. Sometimes we have to come in, the resource center is having a meeting. It's hard to set up without making a lot of noise and disturbing them. So give some thought to flexibility, referring to Rennie's thing up there, to maybe change times of meetings. But in the meantime, think about expansion, think about how we can keep everything going here the way it's been. Father comes in at 6 o'clock, and we look at each other when we're here and go, didn't we get any sleep? So he's coming in to pray. We're coming in to work. So, and he prays for us. So give some thought to it.
See, I've got a question for Deacon, if I could, please. The gentleman back here made a very good point about the expansion. Currently we have 3 choices. Is there a 4th choice possibly, where we have design drawings and plans for expansion of the current facility? Is that something we can look at in addition to just these 3 only?
I was here for the second one of that, and this is the third one trying to work on these. I came just after the decision was made by Bishop Sticka, who said, no, we're not going to do that expansion. Now, when I came here, that was the word that I received when I came. Nevertheless, we looked into it anyway to see could that be an option. Look at it. We have one bishop and then you have another bishop and sometimes. But let's look at it. And they did, when we were looking at this group here, this area going out that way, as Jim referred to down there, there was a strong consideration by the fire department who wanted to have their voice heard and said, if there is going to be any connection whatsoever to any of these facilities that we have to put in sprinkler systems in the church and all over, and that will cost immediately before you start $500,000. And as we were looking at that fourth option, if you like, about those considerations, it just seemed an awful lot of money in order to put out an expansion. And that was the reason we left that. It's always an option, but any construction that we do beyond what it is that we have, it all has to be, if we were going to build an extra building, it has to be disconnected from this building. Otherwise you begin with $500,000 for sprinkler systems. That was the thought. I'm not arguing the fors or against that, but that was the rationale.
I think too, at the last town hall meeting we had, there would be code issues if we touched even this area, and that would even be in addition to that 500,000. Now, I may be wrong, but that's what I remember from the last meeting. It's the same?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. I know Mary's been waiting patiently. I know. We're gonna try and get to everybody. We'll stay as long as we got to.
I'll be quick. I'm just listening. I think some of the issues could be addressed in path one. Why were 3 events, with 3 programs going on one Sunday? That doesn't seem, it shouldn't, yeah, that's poor scheduling. It shouldn't have been. So I think we need to really think hard about path one, about how we schedule things.
Several years ago, we had groups organized and picked to go to homes to raise funds for construction. And there was a plan. There was a construction plan. I want to know what happened to the money that was collected and what happened to the plans that were drawn up, and what became of all of that?
I can answer it. I think Jim referred to where did the money go. A decision was made with the people who were here at that time, in Father Albert's time. The decision was to use the money not for the construction of the buildings, but rather for the renovation of the church. A portion of that money was there. All the rest of the money is still there, not used. It's not used. It now has accumulated to, I may be a little bit off, but not far, but there is 1.23 million out there that is for whatever it is that we're going to do. It would not be sufficient if it was a separate building, or even if we decided to take the building that we have and put in sprinkler systems and all that sort of thing. That money is there for that. But it seemed
It seemed just like when we did all of the plans to go out that direction, just to recall for those who worked so hard on it and gave their time and their effort and their skills, tremendous amount by the Building and Development Committee, to come up with plans to go out in that direction and to put in classrooms, etc. If you remember, COVID happened, and we were supposed to be able to do what it is that we were going to do for something like $800,000. And COVID came in and prices went up, and we finished up, I believe, with a 1.4 million cost. And that committee came to me and advised me and said, Father, we do not think that will be a good use of money. And that was from the people who had poured their soul into the doing of that. Okay. But that money is still there. That effort that those people there, as far as I'm concerned, is still there and appreciated, but maybe another direction.
There's also renovation of parish offices.
And yes, and it went to the renovation of the parish offices. Were there any other hands?
One thing that I don't think is being considered, but I'm not sure, is what effect the Wyndham leaving is going to have on the community. Will there be young people coming in? Will there be single-family homes and not just a retired community? Which I think that could open it up to really needing something bigger, as far as it wouldn't be just, not just, but it wouldn't be like Bible study and stuff. It might be educating children, having different community events and a lot of work. So I think by the end of the year, we're supposed to know about that, what's going to happen. Okay. And then the other thing I had was the number of volunteers. I was shocked when there was a little appreciation luncheon that was perfect. I believe somebody said 240 volunteers.
Just for Sunday Mass.
Just for Sunday Mass.
For the weekend Mass.
I think that shows the strength, and I don't think, Father, you are wonderful. But I think it shows the investment of people's resources, the excitement. I know there's talks of new programs that are starting up. And one of them I know is being held at somebody's house, which you really don't want that. Just as far as legality and stuff like that. But that's where we're being taken to. And yes, we could have them in the afternoon, in the evening, but that's not where our community tends to want to go out. And the other thing I was going to say is, as far as the financials, Father, you do have in the bulletin about the money in the building fund and stuff, over $1 million. So I was just wondering if there was any calculation done as far as if we were to stay the same size, what maintenance in the next 5 to 10 years would be expended if we didn't have another fall. Because sometimes we fail to think about those expenses.
Yeah, there's a maintenance fund that we keep for the parish. There's a maintenance fund that we keep for the parish, so it's budgets for things like that. Did I see I still see some hands, right?
First off, I get real nervous talking in public, so I'm also concerned about the growth of the parish.
My children do not go to church. None of their friends go to church. I'm not saying they're not good people, but they have chosen not to go to church. So with us being older, I don't see the younger generation moving into this area. I'm sad about that, but also, if we build something that you think you want to rent out, you have to realize that there are things that cannot be held in a Catholic facility that might want to rent it. Also, the insurance rate and the liability increase. I just don't know that if building something now would be economically viable, or, see what happens. But also, as far as adding on to the building, previous parish I went to, they bought a building, and then it was like so expensive to get the sprinklers, to get all the required codes met, that when we left, they were still trying to raise money. I just think that better scheduling, and I know it's hard because I don't drive in the evening, I don't drive at night unless it's an emergency. My eyesight's okay, but I don't want to hit anybody. I just think trying to do better with what we have would be the responsible thing to do right now. That's it.
You did well.
Yeah. Again, just Karen, I'm Brett Petro, by the way, for those of you that don't know me. Again, building on what Father asked for, it's not strictly the numbers about population growth or utilization, etc.
Can you move the mic closer, please?
Everybody without this.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But just real quick, and if you want to go in the weeds with me later, I'll be happy to do this. The U.S. Census numbers for Fairfield Glade, we get 1.9 average, 1.9% growth every year.
Are they all Catholic?
Excuse me, please let me finish. We get 1.9 growth every year. It's been that way for the last 10 years. For the last 7 years here at St. Francis, we've had over 3% growth in families every year. That's including all the folks and families we lose to passing away or moving away, etc. So I guess I'm just saying I don't have the same concerns about the numbers. We continue to grow with numbers of families here, and we have some increase in younger families. Yeah, we're 95% seniors, but we're getting more. There was one other thing I wanted to say, and I forgot what it is.
I saw hands back here in the back. Can I go to the back and then we'll come back? We had some people in the back that had their hands up for a long time. So let me go all the way to the back, and then I'm going to work my way to the front.
First of all, I do believe that we do need a better utilization of the facilities that we have here. I hear excuses, oh, people don't want to come out late in the afternoon for an event or a class or whatever. They're willing to go out for dinner late in the afternoon. Okay, secondly, keep in mind, whatever we do in the interim, we still have to do and manage what we have now. And there are some ministries that are a little resistant to going outside the block of times they usually use. And there's going to have to be more flexibility from everybody, no matter what we do.
The question was asked about, are they all Catholic as far as people moving into the Glade? One of the reasons my family moved here was because there was a church close by. We are older people, we don't want to do a lot of driving, and it was wonderful that I didn't have to. I can get to this church now in about 15 minutes from where I live. So I think there are others in this room who also took that into consideration. the first thing that happened when we were looking was, where's the Catholic Church? And I think that happens more often. So, yes, being viable here makes a difference with how we grow as a community.
I'd just like to suggest a possibility of more meeting spaces would be some portable buildings. I've seen this happen in the college where I used to work, that because of growth, that they did some portable buildings. They could be off in the parking lot someplace, but you could make them as big as maybe 30 people or something like that if needed. Just a thought if we don't want to expand.
Okay, so my question, how much spare acreage is there, has St. Francis got? If you take up, the car park of the buildings, how much more room have we got?
We're not hearing the full question.
No hearing.
Can't hear me? Okay, I was just talking about the acreage that St. Francis has got as a parish. Because if you expand it, then you're taking up the parking lot, and the parking lot's on full. So I was just wondering how much more acreage is there that you've got to play with? Because you're going to have to build the centre, you're going to have more car parking spaces. And I've got no idea what the acreage that St. Francis owns.
The team has looked at the spaces. There's some space on the other side of where the columbarium is. There's space down here across from the rectory. So those, yeah, that's right now just trees and stuff. So yeah, we've got adequate space for the Parish Life Center without forfeiting the parking space. Yeah, and there would be parking added. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Carla. My husband and I have been coming here, excuse me, I have a cold, for about 5 years. You want to talk about or ask about non-Catholics in the area. My husband and I have been married for 37 years. My husband is a non-practicing Baptist all of our marriage, and it hasn't been until the past 2 years that he's been coming regularly to Mass with me. He loves this parish as much as I do, and I want to say it's because of Father Michael, but we know it's because of the grace of God that he's here with us. And he feels like he's missed a lot of opportunities in this parish. A lot of the meetings and classes and things are done during the day. And he would love to be involved, but he works during the day, so that's not a possibility. And I'd also like to say, before we moved to this area, we lived in Pennsylvania and I worked in DC. And I worked in military construction, which involved looking at a pre-built building, a leased building, and a new building to see what the cost differences were. And I will say that when you look at old plans, the county, state, federal government, whoever, is not going to approve them if they are, say, 3 years past drawing. Because in that time, the rest of the building may become out of code. And so not only will you have to replace the sprinkler systems, but you may have to do other things to bring that building up to code, which typically, from what I've dealt with for years and years, that's more costly than a new building. So that's just my opinion, and I hope you'll pray about this.
I, for one, agree with the expansion. I love when everybody gets together and puts their ideas and has a interesting, educational, and fun time. That gets people out of their comfort zone, and they come out and they enjoy being together. And I think that's real important. And when it comes to using the space we do have a lot of space available. And I think I, for one, have been in committees where they say, well, we meet every Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
well, maybe it's time to move it someplace else, so other people have time to get into those spaces and the time zone. Sometimes we get stuck in a rut, and we gotta get out of those ruts to try something else, but when looking at that map and how many times we have open on, like she said, Mondays, or what it might be, Saturdays, whatever it is, Fridays, exactly. We need to use those spaces. Why crowd when we got places open? Have a logbook, sign, we're gonna have Monday at this time, maybe next week we'll have Tuesday, or Friday, or whatever it is. But we have to use what we got, and then also consider what we need to get into.
I was just told to be nice. I don't know why he thinks I would get up and give everybody a really bad time, but I'm Chris Marino. I'm the Faith Formation Coordinator. And I just want you to know that we've had 8 people come for training to come into the church in the last year. It's inspiring. I also get requests for what do we do for children here. We currently are going to, well, I've already purchased the books for 3 kids to start confirmation. Now their mom homeschools, so we aren't going to be challenged by that. But I've also been approached by people bringing kids in who are grade school age. Do we have a ton of them? No. But we're going to be using those after school hours here. So I guess my message to all of you is, think about the number of times you've heard people say, when we first started talking about this, the cost was down here. When we finally knew we had to do something, the cost was up here. So I guess I want to remind all of you with your experience in other parishes and other towns that we need to think ahead, like you did when you were thinking about retirement. Well, here we're talking about the life of this parish. And what are we looking forward to? And the more we do to bring Christ to each other and to those that need instruction, from my viewpoint, we really need to be serious about looking forward.
You were very nice.
To piggyback on what Sue said regarding the flexibility of the ministry schedules, it seems to me that most ministries, well, all ministries, want the daily mass to be a preface before their meetings. Certainly with any one of them that I've been involved in. So perhaps one suggestion might be that we would have daily mass maybe in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, maybe both.
Well, I hope I'm not out of place, but I would like to say I find this a very creative, skilled, generous community, and I think that to follow the Beatitudes is really at the heart of the gospel. And at the heart of the gospel is service, as you know, and that money, not all of it, but a lot of it could be used when SNAP is no longer available. There's going to be a lot of hungry people. There is the homeless population that's growing. And I feel like, I believe what Dr. Martin Luther King said, church is the place you go from. And we can be
the temple, not just build the temple. And I don't mean to be, say what you're doing here is not important. It is important. But I think at the heart of it is to follow Jesus in that way, at least for me. That's why I say I hope I'm not putting anybody down, because I don't mean to, but that's really what I think it's about, and I think you should be comfortable. And we went to Ruth's house for one book study, and it was wonderful. And the early church met in homes. So I see no reason why people can't have book studies, Bible studies in each other's home. It's very cozy and nice. So those are just some thoughts. Thank you.
All right, who still has to talk? Here we go.
I'm wondering if the group that worked on this considered pushing out the office area like we did once before, farther west, for some smaller meeting spaces. Or is this not even possible?
Thanks, Mary, for that question. Again, the purpose of this gathering today is not to decide to build or not build. We are just seeking your input to, do we continue to investigate a possible build? So Mary, directly to answer your question, no, we have not considered any modifications of any of the physical plant that we have today at all. That would, if any of those were to be considered, that would come either in the next step or the next step and a half after either a builder or an architect is retained for preliminary ideas and drafts. So no directly for what you've asked right now.
Unless there's any more hands to go up. Any more hands? Yeah, I'll get you. Go ahead.
Hi.
Newcomer.
Hi. I also want to say we're considering our own age population here, which is in the fourth quarter. But there are people outside of the Glade that come to our church. And I think we need to consider community is not just Fairfield Glade, but community is Crossville that has been coming here. So if we're talking about growth, we don't have to just necessarily think about Fairfield Glade growth. We need to think about Crossville growth and our neighbors. Crab Orchard, I think people from Crab Orchard come here. People just down the road on Peavine that are not here in the Glade. So we need to consider everybody that may be part of our church family and not just our Glade family.
Somebody beside you.
Sorry.
I'm a brand new person to Fairfield Glade. Actually tomorrow is my first anniversary. And anyway, would you mind putting up that wonderful grid that you did with all of the meeting spaces just for a minute? I don't know if that's possible, but if I remember correctly, there was more white than colored blocks. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but I think it's already, not to beat a dead horse, flexibility and better scheduling, because it seems like there's plenty of space for the meetings. So let's just get that out of the way. The other thing is, in terms of what we are as a parish, I like what that lady said over there, and I like what Annie said. We're supposed to be bringing the church out, not in. Building a parish hall, to me, seems a little selfish. Maybe it's just me, but it's not a building that we're about. It's what we do as a community and as Catholics. So to echo what Annie just said and what the lady said, with what's happening with the government shutdowns and the cost of living, We as a community, just speaking for myself, I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable. And I think we have a beautiful church that has been renovated. And I kind of think that maybe we're sitting on a pile of money, over $1 million or something. Alan Hunt said 5 things, and one of them is, give it away, give it away, give it away. So maybe we open up a food pantry in town, or maybe we start a Meal on Wheels, or maybe, we start linkages with the community. Like, I so love our choir. I don't know if you guys do, but it's beautiful. And I know that next year we're not doing the joint one with the other churches, but why not, rent out the local high school, put on a concert with donations to a charity or a cause, make linkages with our community. In my former life, I was a community center director. And there is more strength when you make linkages with like-minded people, nonprofit organizations. So why can't we start looking at making those linkages, spreading the word of what we do as good people, and spend some of that money. Give it away, baby, give it away.
So finally the Z's get to come up. Like most of you, I've been in different parishes. Like some of you, I have been in parish building committees. God help you. And even a tour as a county commissioner for building. Well, one of the things I want to address right now is a concern that some people had about this guy who's been here as long that I know, because I saw him when he came in. Actually, it was the week he came in. So, Father Mike is about our age, and he's going to leave us. Head first or feet first, I'm not sure which. And I've been through some great priests, and then we have one or two of them that we desire not to speak of the guy. But what he's saying is something is happening here that I have not seen happen in this parish. And I can't put a word to it. But I want to assure you that once it gets started, it has an initiative of its own. It has inertia. It keeps going.
Quiet, please. Thank you.
What it does is, what Father Mike has started here, all of you are part of getting it moving. So when Father Mike moves on, and he will, just like all our priests will move on, and like us will move on, but have faith and courage that once you've started, once you energize it, it doesn't stop. It can't stop. So, have faith in what we're doing, because apparently it's working. I'd like to also talk about spaces. This space right here is ideal for right after Mass. People in the fourth quarter will move from Mass to here for a function. I don't believe they will walk across the parking lot and go on past their cars and go to another space. However, if there is a space that is built specifically for certain things, then what will happen is that becomes the destination. So someone will come here for a class to go to a space other than here, other than church, for that. So I believe we need to have courage of what we're doing. Yes, it may require Tony going back in. And thank you, Vince, for convincing me to go and help out, knock on doors. Been there, done that. We'll do it again, like some of you too. So, let's give encouragement to the folks that were dumb enough and who were naive enough to say, yes, I'll work on the committee. Because like most committees, if you don't say, yes, I'll help, somebody says, oh, I know who will work. They weren't here right now. No objections. So let's pray and do what God wants us to do, because things are happening at St. Francis that I'm hearing people who were not cradle Catholics like this guy who were saying, maybe there's something going on. And I say that especially because my new wife, that most of you met from 5 years ago, yes, we've been married 5 years now, Father, and you said we wouldn't make it. Oh yeah, we still got more time to go, okay. Her denomination called Anglican Catholic, of which my brother the priest was a member of and has now gone to his reward, because of things that have happened in their faith communities, that more folks now are saying, I no longer feel these folks are following the gospel, but I do know those folks that are saying Francis are following the gospel. And if you'll notice that when we did a blessing of the animals, many of us have them, last 2 years, Father Mike had invited non-Catholics to come and participate. Thank you, Father. Who's next?
I just wanted to say one more thing. Some other folks.
How about some new folks that haven't had an opportunity? Randy, I have a question for you. In the map that you have of facility usage, did you calculate the total number of hours and the percentage of what is actually being used?
Yeah.
Could you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's a little misleading, so can you go back to the baseline? Sure.
You need a mic.
He has a mic. I need a mic. I might, but I need a mic. So this is a little misleading.
Well, not misleading.
It's a little, not misleading, but it's a little off. So this is the Knights of Columbus. I've been bumped 4 times in the last 4 months. So just be aware of that. And the CCW has been bumped 3 times in the last 3 months. What we don't necessarily have in here is all of the setup times. So if you have a setup, it takes another part of the day. So in my calculation, after meeting with the the ministers, we are at a capacity of somewhere around 70% if everybody does what they say they're going to do. And that consists of this. There's a half a day in the morning available every day, there's a half a day in the afternoon available every day, and there's a half a day in the evening every day. Now we tend to use the morning. Our problem is not small individual meetings. Our problem is larger meetings, especially if you have a class and you want breakout spaces. There are no breakout spaces. If you have a meeting in here and it is amplified, you can't use the resource center because there's too much noise. So it's not simply the capacity, it's the kind of capacity we have. This is a great place for after Mass. I agree with that 100%. People will come out here and do whatever we do after Mass. What we're talking about is having a building that is large enough and configurable enough to seat more and be broken up into 4 spaces. 3 small and 1 larger. So that's really what we're trying to get to. here. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. I had a couple other questions related to that.
The mic, please.
I just had a couple other questions related to that. So if I'm looking at your numbers correctly, right now we're saying we can have 240 people at round tables, and what you're projecting for the new place would only add another 100 seats. Is that correct?
For round tables.
For round tables. And then for chairs, right now we have 342, and you would add capacity for 84 more seats. That doesn't sound like a lot. And the other thing is, let me finish and then you can just take the mic away from me. So your map is misleading if you're not including your setup time in the number of hours. So to me, you would have to go back to the drawing board to include some of that.
There's setup time, there's a lot of setup time in there for every meeting.
But he just said he got bumped for something and none of that included setup time. So it has to be consistent so that we know the total number of hours that are available, because there's no way that shows 70% being used. It's more like 70% not being used.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So what is on here is precise, and it does include setup time. So often, if there's a morning session, you will see in the afternoon that there's setup time for that next morning, so the day before. So a lot of that Wednesday, for example, or Tuesday afternoon down here in the parish hall, for an example, got setup time for hospice auxiliary meeting. Okay, and then there's the hospice meeting. Got setup time for CCW board meeting. Setup. So setup for town hall. That was one that didn't happen. I did not update that because things are constantly changing. So I picked a spot in time, and that's what this represented. Anyway, that happens all throughout here. Setup times, and often, like I said, it's the afternoon before. Like, for example, here's bingo. And what also happens is we have choir practice, and folks don't typically like to be here in Sheehan Hall during choir practice. Twofold. It's too noisy for Eric and his choir, and maybe even vice versa. So they don't want to disturb. They want to protect that time for the choir. So a lot of times, depending on the activity, they may choose not to do a Wednesday afternoon. Funerals are in here. So when you talk about bumping, okay, I want you to know that that happens. Funerals, we believe and feel that that should take priority. Absolutely. And I think no one disagrees with that. So sometimes that does happen, and people get bumped. Activities, that's probably a bad way to say that. But
That usually includes something after the service for the family, correct?
Well,
yes.
probably most of the time it includes some luncheon afterwards. Yeah. So it's just meant to be a pictorial view. Wasn't trying to fill people with numbers, okay? Pictorial view just so you could see spaces being utilized, spaces unutilized. That's all it's meant to really portray, okay?
So the difference is this is a point in time in the past, and part of the survey is what people want to do. And a big hunk of it is faith formation. That takes bigger rooms with breakout rooms. So that's a piece of it.
But are there breakout rooms? Because this doesn't say anything about breakout rooms.
The new building would be designed so that the hall could be divided into 4 spaces.
It doesn't say that because we're not there. We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We talked about that in the last town hall.
Okay, this is nothing that's been discussed at all, but if
we have the space where the parking lot is on the other side of the church. I'm not sure how long the church has been, here, and I know it was renovated somewhat recently, but in keeping the facilities all attached to each other, could there be a possibility of pushing the church sanctuary space out into the parking lot on the other side of the sanctuary there, and having the existing church be our social hall area?
I suppose that's something that the architectural committee could look at. I don't know. That's down the road. All right.
I have one more.
Are you able to share what the out-of-pocket cost was to have Dr. Alan Hunt here? I found that to be a great event. Had some non-Catholic neighbors that were able to attend. And if we did a building or whatever we do, I'd like to still be able to have the funds as a parish to have those kinds of events. Like this lady said, it's as much or more of us going out to proclaim Christ as opposed to coming into a building where we can, and you need both, really. But I just found that event was, it's the first time in 4.5 years that I had a neighbor say something that happened at St. Francis Church that they were aware of, and they were totally blown away with the community that they experienced, as well as that kind of a program. And so I would like for us to be able to nurture, fund, and encourage more of those. I just noticed on your page it's $21,750 for operating costs of the new building. That would be about 6, and I know numbers can change, but that would be about 6 events at the Fairfield Glade community. And I know it's just not numbers, but sometimes you got to balance out how much can people donate and give, and what are the paths that those monies are going down, if you will.
We don't have the total cost, because I assume you're asking about the cost of everything, his fees, the cost of all the food and everything. His fee was $4,000. Okay, so he wasn't very expensive.
We budgeted about 2.
Yeah. And then of course there was the cost of all the food. So we haven't totaled up all the. So my staff is shaking their head back there. So I apparently don't remember the number right. So Monica, tell us what the number was.
I'll let Teresa tell you. She's one of the video research and added it all up. You can share.
Okay, I gave Rainey, I'm Teresa, I'm the bookkeeper here, and I gave Rainey a spreadsheet with every expense that we had, not counting labor for the event, and Alan Hunt was $6,000, total cost was over $14,000.
She's the bookkeeper.
Bean count.
That's how to walk.
My favorite bean count.
So I'm sure this is going to be the last question, but how are you going to manage the flexibility issue? Is each ministry going to come to you and say, yeah, we're willing to move to Friday, or are you going to have a survey of ministries, and how are you going to manage the flexibility issue?
I'm going to put the ministry heads in a room and lock the door.
The way it will be done with great difficulty. I saw somebody else's hand down here. Was there? Yes, excuse me.
I was just wondering about the availability and the
I can't hear you.
Up to your mouth.
I was wondering about the availability and suitability of the KC facility for some of these activities.
The KC is a building that's off on which highway? Off on 70, and I think it would be available if ever we asked for it. And we haven't really asked for it. Good. I'm going to kind of close it. First of all, let me just say, tremendous response. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for voicing whatever is going on. You have the form to fill out. I'll ask you to take care of that. There's a couple of little things that I would like to add. What I see happening is what happened. Okay, Alan Hunt didn't just drop out of the sky. It came from, I believe, 8 years of kind of coming to this point that says, hey, let's get somebody that can draw so many more. And is it expensive? We look, I mean, how you spend your money oftentimes is the indication of where your priorities are. And I think we found that out, and I would love to see more of that happening in our parish to stir us up. There were so many people who came to that event that wouldn't have come except for the kind of advertising, the pushing, about the life that's going on in our parish, that we're doing that. I also believe, thank you for the accolades you gave me. I believe that I was sent here by the Holy Spirit for me as much as for you. And that's not false humility. I grew trying to deal with the things that we're dealing with and how to work them out, and how are we going to get the scheduling worked the same way as we got an awful lot of hard stuff worked out. A lot of skin flying, a lot of hair, and then coming to that unity, coming to the unity that I believe God blesses. And I believe that's the dynamic that's going on. And out there, to help that go on, we have a fantastic, developed, it just didn't drop out of the sky, it was worked on, a developed staff that isn't just the staff, they are in ministry. And that was part of the dynamic, and I think we shifted and changed, is no, you are here not to be a staff to the parish, to tell the parish what to do, but rather to serve the parish and be available to them. And that has happened. And the ministries that have grown up in our parish, again, while I've been here, and I'm just going to say just one of them, because I'd be nothing without them. Let's say the finance council. I haven't a clue. I know how to balance my own books, but to understand budgets and what costs for this and whatever, I'm surrounded. That's why our parish is good. I pick good people, and I'm surrounded by very talented people who become generous. And out of that, like you just meant, Tony just said, something grows and something develops. When you stood about reaching out to the community, I am all for that. But I want to say, I do not want to build a building to rent out to people that need it. I'm not interested. Now, may people want our building? Yes, but I'm not building it so that it will be financed by people using it. And a lovely thing is happening in our parish. Ministries are growing because of our faith in Jesus. Ministries are growing. And I'm going to just take an example of the Vincent de Paul that just kind of was being worked on here, I'd say for about 6 or 7 years, maybe longer. But how are we going to reach out? And Peavine Care Center out there started here from people reaching out to the community. And I want you to know that a lovely thing is happening soon, and that is we've got a lovely ministry here. It was quiet, it was underground in a sense because of insurance and all those kinds of, but the care ministry, where Eric has, and his little team, has a whole group of people who are talented, who said, call me, use me, whatever. But there's another group in our community that does that, and it's called resident services. Okay? Well, we will be joining resident services from our community to use the resources that we have here to reach out not just to ourselves, but to the community where we can work with each other back and forth. With regard to the social action, is it social action committee? Yeah, the social action. Social action is reaching out to other faith communities now to see how we can combine our resources and that people will begin to see, my God, this place is alive. And the life is the life of Christ. Anyway, I just want to say, terrific. There is going to be another meeting down the road, apart from this one at all, where you all filled out on a survey. Do you remember that one? Oh, yeah. And everybody filled out a survey, but we're going to have a meeting, I think, in December, telling you the results of that. And if you want to come to that too, I'm just giving you a sneak preview that's down the road. But I'm thrilled to death that you came. Terrific information, a good feel for some direction that we're going, and you will hear more.
All right, so he did wrap up. Pretty much. Really, thanks for coming. Thanks for all the feedback.